Hello. So today I was looking for a game that I hadn't played in a while, but that wasn't a very long, difficult game, since I don't have a lot of time this week for a video, but I wanted to make one. So I looked on my shelf and saw Quarriors, which I hadn't played for several years. This came out in 2011, at least this version, that's in this dice-shaped box. I know they came out with lots of other versions, lots of other expansions. I think they eventually went to a box instead of this dice-shaped can, but this is the one that came out in 2011. That's the one that I have. I don't have any of the expansions or anything. So this is the one I will be going over how to play, how to set up and play. If there are any expansions or newer versions of this, there are any different rules changes or anything, I don't know about those, so I'll just be going over this game and the rules that were included in the 2011 rule set. So let's get started with setup. First, you find these three basic resource cards. You've got Assistant, Quiddity, and Portal. You put those in the middle of the play area, somewhere like that. You then place two Assistant dice. You'll see they match what's shown down here on each of these cards. It shows the different sides of the corresponding dice. So you'll place two Assistant dice on this Assistant card. And five Portal dice. Again, they match what's shown on the bottom of that card on the Portal card. Then find your deck of spell cards, shuffle those. After you've shuffled them, deal 3 underneath your basic cards. And if something like this happens where you get 2 cards that share the same class, like this is a life spell and this is a life incantation. In other words, you can see they're going to use the same dice. So if that happens, you pull out a card that already matches a card, matches the class of a card that you've already pulled out, is going to use the same dice as that card. Then you just discard that and draw another one until you get one that doesn't match the class of a card you've already pulled out. So here we got 3 different spells. So the rest of these spell cards can just go back in the box. They won't be used during this game. Next, you'll take your creature deck, shuffle that up, and then you'll deal 7 of those out. And again, you don't want to get the same class of card. So the way the rules show to do that is put your first 3 underneath your spells. And we didn't get any of the same class. We got Defender of the Pile, Strong Defender of the Pile, Mighty Ghostly Spirit, and Warrior of the Quay. And again, we want 7, so now we'll do 4 more underneath here. And so far we haven't got any. Okay, so here we got Strong Defender of the Pile, and now we pulled out Defender of the Pile. So they're the same class, the Defender of the Pile. So with this one we'll have to discard. As you can see, it would have used the same dice of one we've already pulled out. So we'll just discard that one, draw another in its place. Alright, so we got something different. And for our last one, alright, again we got this one's Mighty Primordial Ooze. This one's a Strong Primordial Ooze. So the Primordial Ooze is the class. We can't have a duplicate. So we discard that one and draw another one. And now we got this one's Warrior of the Quay. We got Strong Warrior of the Quay. Again, a duplicate class. We can't have that, so we got to draw another one. We got another Defender of the Pile. So now we got to draw another one. Okay, here we go. We got Mighty Quake Dragon. Alright, so now we got 7 different creatures. So we're good. All the rest of these creature cards can just be put back in the box. So this area here with your spells and creatures is called the wilds. That's how it's referred to. So then you find the 5 dice, or quarry dice as they're called, that match each of these cards. So for instance, for the defender of the, I said pile, it's pale, defender of the pale. So these are the 5 matching dice. So I'll take them out and put them on this card. Alright, like so. So I'll do that. I'll find the 5 dice for each of these cards and place them on there, and I'll be back. Alright, so I've placed the dice on each of these cards, the corresponding dice. Each player will then select a bag. I'm going to have a blue player, green player, and a red player. So they will take that and a corresponding glory marker, so red, green, and blue. You'll set the glory track somewhere nearby and then put the player's glory markers up near the glory track. Each player will then take 8 quiddity dice, that's these white with the blue quiddity icons on them. And each player will take 4 assistant dice. Remember, we started with 2 assistant dice here on the assistant card. Each player will then take 4 assistant dice. So each player will have 8 quiddity and 4 assistant dice, and they'll put those in their bag. Once players have all 12 dice in their bag, they'll mix them up, and you are then ready to begin. So I've got that done for all 3 of my players. Got all our creatures and spells and basics in the wild, so we're ready to go. Let's get started. Let's get started with how to play. All right, so let's talk about how you play. So before we get started on how a turn goes, let's look at some features of these dice, like on this creature here, the strong defender of the pale. Let's look at this side, the creature side first. This number up here in the top left is the level of the creature. Alright, so this is a level 3, and sometimes it's hard to read that on these dice, but that's a 3. This number over here is the attack value that will, if you're using that creature, that will be added to your attack total when you have this creature. And this number down here is the defense of that creature, so that's an 8. So that's how much damage it can take before it's destroyed. And then here you see a couple of asterisks, or bursts as they're calling this game. And if you have that face, you can look on the card from where that creature came, and you see that's a double burst, so you can look at the power of that. When Defender of the Pale scores, draw 2 additional dice and add them to your active pool. Whereas if you had the one that just had the 1 burst, which is a level 1, attack of 1, defense of 5, and 1 burst, you can see that just means when the Defender of the Pale scores, draw 1 additional die and add it to your active pool. Then some of the other faces are here, like that means that's worth 2 quiddity. And you can see what all the possible faces are, as I mentioned before, right down here. So one of them is a 1 quiddity side. You got a couple of 2 quiddity sides. And then you have 3 creature sides, a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. And so all of these other dice are the same, and you can see the possible faces that each of these dice can have, and each of them may have, if you roll the burst, then that you get that special burst power. And spells are similar. If you roll the spell side, then you can see what the power of that spell is when you cast it. You can cast this spell if you roll this to gain 3 quiddity. Otherwise, the other sides are just an amount of quiddity, 1, 2, or 2. This spell, there's some that have single burst like this side, or a double burst like this side. And so if you cast that, you would, depending on which one you got, that's the ability you would have. Otherwise, it's just worth quiddity. Now this one, you'll see it says a reaction. Reaction spells can only be cast on your opponent's turn, but not on your turn. Let's look at these portals. You can see some of these dice say immediate, so when you roll this dice, and we'll talk about how all that works in a minute, if it has an immediate, then as soon as you roll it, then you do the effect. So you can see if you roll a 1, then you draw and roll 1 extra dice out of your bag. Or if you roll a 2, then you draw two extra dice out of your bag and roll them. And then these are spent once you've done their power. And this assistant here, they're worth mostly quiddity. They do have a creature side on them, level 1, attack 1, defense 2. And then they do have a side, as you can see here, where if you roll that, you can immediately re-roll that dice and another dice. So all the abilities of the dice are shown on their cards. So, alright, we'll talk about a player's turn. Now, the first thing you'll do on a player's turn, but this won't occur on the first turn of the game because you likely, and definitely not on every turn of the game, you likely won't have any creatures to score. But the first thing you can do on your turn is score creatures. So, we'll just briefly talk about that now and then more later in the game. But as you play on your turn, you'll end up getting some creatures maybe in your ready area, and they'll stay there at the end of your turn. If at the beginning of your next turn you still have creatures in your ready area, then you'll score them in glory depending on the amount shown on the card that they came from. So these are Mighty Death Dealers. I got them from here. If you were going to score them, you can see they're worth 2 glory each. So you would move your marker up 2 for each one that you had in your area at the beginning of your turn. Now, if you had other creatures there, you would score for them also. Again, you look at the card from where they came to see how much glory that they're worth. Now, spells don't score you anything, only creatures. And then for each creature that you're scored, you're allowed to cold dice or remove dice that you have in your used pile, 1 for each creature that's scored. So that allows you to get rid of some of your weaker dice. And again, that'll all make more sense when we talk a little bit more about how the game plays. So that is the first thing you do on your turn, score any creatures that are in your ready area. And then if you do score any, you can coal from your used pile 1 dice per creature that's scored. And of course, before you coal, you would move any creatures that were in your ready area to your used area. So what you're going to have in front of you is an active area, a ready area, and a used area. Now there are some, at least on the Board Game Geek website, there are some play mats you can download and print out to actually have some place to separate those areas visually. I don't know if any of the expansions may come with something like that, but just the base game, you just have to imagine you've got an active area, a ready area, and a used area. Alright, so after you've scored any creatures you had in your ready area and moved them to your used area, and then cold dice if you wanted to, then you get to the next step, which is you draw dice and roll to create your active pool. So each turn you'll draw 6 dice out of your bag. If I can get in here. Shake it up, make sure you get a good... Now remember, we've only got quiddity dice and assistant dice in here right now. So we get 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need 1 more. Alright, you draw without looking. Then you roll those dice and see what results you got. So now remember, these are all currently in your active area or active pool. And then you decide if you want to ready, if you rolled any creatures, like I rolled this one assistant creature, I can spend quiddity to put it in my ready area, and the cost is what its level is. So this is a level 1, so I could spend 1 quiddity that would go into my used area, and then I could put this creature, this assistant creature, into my ready area. And then that leaves me 4 quiddity, which I can spend later on my turn. Next, you will attack opponents' creatures. If they have opponents' creatures in their ready area, then you would attack them with the creatures that from your ready area. And just to show a better example than that, since we've only got 1 creature, let's set up maybe something that we would have further along in the game. Maybe we have this creature and this creature that we rolled and we spent quiddity to. You know, we would have had to spend 2 quiddity to ready this one and 1 quiddity to ready this one. And we have those in our ready area. So first thing we'll do is get our attack total. So our attack total from this creature is 3. Our attack total from this creature is 2. So we know our attack total is 5. So first we attack the player on our left if he has any creatures in his ready area. So in this example, we'll say he's got these 2, and he will decide which creature he's going to defend with first. So this creature's defense is a 3, and this creature, the mighty primordial ooze, you'll see it has a question mark. So if we look at its card, it says that equals the number of creatures in all ready areas. So that's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5. So his defense is 5, which is my attack total. So the defender decides which creature you're going to attack first. So if he decided that we were going to have to attack the slime first, then, or the ooze first, our attack total is 5. We determined that its defense is 5, so if your attack total equals or is greater than the creature it's attacking, then it is destroyed. So if he chose the primordial ooze, then that creature would be destroyed, but I would have no attack left with which to attack his other creature here, his devotee of the holy Quarriors. So that creature would remain alive. Then we would move on to the next player, and then our attack total is again what it was when we attacked this. So my attack total would be 5 again for this player. He's got a defense of 4 from this mighty quake dragon, so his creature would be destroyed. And that would end my attack. But let's go back to the example where if I was attacking this player and my attack total is 5, and he decides to have me attack this creature first, its defense is only 3, so I would defeat it, but then I subtract its defense value from my total attack. So this creature is destroyed, but now because its defense was 3, I've only got 2 total attack left to attack this primordial ooze, and we know its defense is actually now 4 because this one is no longer in the ready area. It was destroyed, and the number of creatures in all ready areas is what its defense is. So that's going to be 2, 3, 4. Its defense is 4. I've only got 2 attack left after destroying this, so I would not be able to destroy that ooze, so it would remain there. Now still, when I move on to this player, my attack total goes back to what my original total is of 5, so I would still be able to destroy this one. Now if he had another creature, maybe one of these, and I came and attacked him next, and he decided to have me attack this dragon first, well, it's got a defense of 4, my attack total is 5, so that would kill him, but then I would have only 1 attack left to attack this ghostly spirit, who has a defense of 2, so I wouldn't be able to destroy him, and he would remain. Alright, so that's how attacking works. But let's go back to our previous example where we really did roll this. We spent the 1 quiddity to ready this assistant, left us 4 quiddity left. If it's the first turn of the game, like in this example, there's nobody for me to attack. The other players haven't gone, so they've got no creatures ready for me to attack with my 1 attack total. So there would be nothing to attack, so I would just move on to the next step, which is to capture 1 new die. So after you attack, you can capture 1 new die from the wilds. So the cost of these die can be seen here. So a spell, this one's 4, this one's 5, this one's 5, 6, 4, 4, 6, 5, 3, 9. Those are pretty expensive. Well, I've only got 4 quiddity to spend. So I would have to get one that costs 4 or less. So, maybe I would say I'm going to get this Mighty Ghostly Spirit. So I would purchase that with my 4 quiddity. Those would go into my used pile. The dice that I just captured would go into my used pile. And again, you can only capture 1 die. Even if I had more quiddity left, you can only capture 1 die per turn unless some power lets you do more than that. But normally you can only capture 1. And then any remaining active die that are in your active pool get sent to your used area. And so the only thing that would be left in your ready area was be creatures that you summoned by paying their level, cost, and quiddity, or spells that you readied. And that ends your turn, and then the next player goes. And again, he would score any creatures he had in his ready area. First turn, he wouldn't have any. But you can see when you come back to this player, if his little assistant creature here had not been attacked and defeated by one of the other 2 players, then at the beginning of his next turn, he would get to score this assistant, which is 1 glory, so he would get to move his marker up 1 space on the glory tracker there. And then since he scored 1 die, he could cull 1 die from his used area, so maybe he might want to cull 1 of these quiddity. When you do that, you would just put it back up here with the basic quiddity, and that would be available for somebody if they if they wanted to, when they get to acquire 1 die from the wild, they could at no cost get this 1 quiddity dice. But if you ever cull a die, you just put it back on its card from where it came. So if you culled an assistant, you would put it back on here and it would be available for purchase for 1, etc. If you, for example, had a spell and you rolled that, you can ready a spell at no cost. It doesn't have a level, so it doesn't have a cost in quiddity to ready it. And you don't have to cast that spell on that turn if you don't want to. You can leave it in your ready area for a future turn to use it at that time, unless it's an immediate spell. Now, none of the spells we drew this time are immediate, but there are some that are. So as soon as you roll them, then you have to cast them and get whatever, depends on what they are. But, and again, as I said, this spell, the reaction spell, if you roll that, you can only cast that on the opponent's turn. And of course, all their effects or their abilities are here on their card. But anyway, you keep taking turns, as I've shown, where you'll score and cull dice, draw dice from your bag. Now, these, when you move dice to your used area, they stay there. So on your next turn, you'll draw 6 dice out of your bag. Now, because we only started with 12, on your second turn, you'll draw the last 6 dice you have in your bag, roll them, and spend them, do whatever. So whenever you go to draw dice out of your bag, if you don't have any in the bag, then you grab everything from your used pile. Now, if you did have maybe maybe you had all these in your used pile. You went to grab your 6 dice and you only had 2. Then you would set those 2 down, take any that are in your used pile, put them back in the bag, mix them up, and then draw your remaining 4. So you have your 6. So you only take from your used pile and put them back in your bag when you've got nothing remaining in your bag. So even though you only start with 12, as you're playing the game and you're starting with just the 12 basic dice, since every turn you get to acquire 1 dice from the wilds, or capture as they call it in the game, capture 1 dice from the wilds, you'll end up getting more and more dice in your bag, and hopefully you'll cull out some of the weaker dice as you get some of the more powerful dice. Anyway, players will continue to take turns until when a person is scoring, they reach their winning amount. Now it depends on the number of players. So in a 4-player game, when somebody scores 12, then they immediately win. In a 3-player game, like we're going to be showing an example here, when somebody scores 15, then they immediately win. Or in a 2-player game, they have to score 20. The other way the game could possibly end is if after a player captures a die from the wilds, if there are ever 4 or more empty creature cards, creature power cards, then that will immediately end the game. Now, of course, I'm talking about creature cards, not spells or basics. So after somebody acquires a die from the wilds, if there's 4 more creature cards that are empty, then that will immediately end the game, and whoever at that point has the higher score on the glory tracker wins the game. If there is a tie, then whoever has more dice in their ready area at that point will win the game. And in the unlikely event that there was a tie with that, then they would just share the victory. So that's pretty much all the rules. It may seem confusing, it may seem not, but I think once we go through a few example turns, you'll see exactly how this plays. It's actually a pretty quick and easy game. So let me put these 12 dice back in the bag, and we'll start and do a few rounds. Alright, we're going to go through a few example turns. You determine who's going to be the first player, or whatever method you want to use. I'm just going to use my method where my blue player here is first player. Then we'll go on to the red player will be the second player, and my green player will be my third player. So blue player's first. He's going to mix up his bag and draw out 6. It'll be pretty similar to what we just drew when I was talking about the rules overview. Uh-oh, I drew out more than 6, so let me redraw. You got to be careful not to draw out more than 6. Alright, 6. Now, of course, if I had any creatures in my ready area, I would have scored them first and then culled dice before I drew 6 and rolled. But I knew since this is the first turn of the game that I don't have any in my ready area. So, alright, now we roll the dice that we drew out, and those go into my active pool. And it looks like I got something very similar to what I had before. So I did roll 1 assistant creature, which I will spend 1 quiddity. Remember, you spend their level to put them in my ready area, and that leaves me 4 dice. Now, next we'd move on to attack. Because it's the first turn of the game, I know my opponents have no creatures to attack. So now I go on to where I can capture 1 new die. I've got 4 quiddity that I can spend. I will spend all 4 and capture 1 of these mighty ghostly spirits. So that goes in my used area. I spent all that quiddity. Alright, so that is going to end my turn. So at the end of my turn, I've got these dice in my used pile. I've got 1 assistant creature in my ready area. Alright, go on to the next player. Alright, that's the red player. He will grabs, he's got no creatures to score, so we won't do that, so he just goes right to drawing 6 dice out of his bag. Alright, he's going to roll those. Those will be then go into his active pool. Alright, so he's pretty much going to have the same thing, so he'll spend 1 die to ready and summon this assistant creature. That leaves him 4 others, but now he can attack, so he's got an attack of 1. The green player has no creatures for him to attack. The blue player does have 1 creature for him to attack, but it's got a defensive 2, and because his attack is only 1, he can't defeat it, so nothing really happens in the attack phase. So now he'll just spend his quiddity to capture a die from the wild. Well, just to do something different, we'll say he's going to capture one of these Devotees of the Holy Quarry. That costs 3, so that goes in his used pile. He spends his 3 quiddity. He's got 1 quiddity left. There's nothing he can really do with it. Even though an assistant costs 1, you can only capture 1 die per turn, so there's nothing he can do with that. At the end of your turn, any dice you still have in your active pool, go ahead and go to your used pool. So that's going to end his turn. Alright, on to the green player. He doesn't have any creatures in his ready area to score, so he'll skip that step. So now he's just going to go on where he's going to draw dice. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. He needs 2 more. 5, 6. Alright, he'll roll those. Now these are, if you remember, it's immediate re-roll this dice and 1 other dice. Well, he got a 2 quiddity with this one, so he doesn't probably want to re-roll that one. So he will re-roll that one and that one and that one and that one. He'll keep this 1 quiddity, so he's going to immediately re-roll these. Alright, so those came up as 1 quiddity. And similar to what everybody else got, except for he got an extra quiddity. So he'll pay 1 quiddity to summon this assistant here. And that's going to leave him with 5, but first he's got to attack. But of course, he's only got 1 attack against 2 defense and 2 defense, so he's not going to defeat any of those. So we know that everything is just going to be the same. But now he can capture a die from the wilds, and he's got 5 quiddity to spend. 2, 3, 4, 5. So he'll get something maybe a little more expensive than what the others got, and we'll just say he'll do something different. He's going to get a spell. This spell costs 5, so that goes into his used area, and the 5 quiddity he spent go into his used pile, and that's going to end his turn. Alright, now we come back to the blue player. Alright, well, the blue player does have a creature to score this time. He's got an assistant. It's still in his area. So we see he gets 1 glory for that, so he'll put his blue marker on the 1. And now he can cull a die for each one that scored. He had 1 score, so he's going to cull this 1 quiddity die, and he'll put that up here with the basic quiddity. And now his creature has to move to his used pile. Alright, so now he moves on to his draw and roll. So we know he's only got 6 dice left in the bag at this point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he will roll those. Let's keep our used pile separate. Alright, he's going to his ready area. He will spend this 1 die to summon this assistant. And that's going to leave him with 5 quiddity. Now you can see the first few turns are all pretty similar. Wait, this was an assistant, right? Did I knock it over? Okay, so now he moves on to his attack phase. We know he's only got 1 attack, so he cannot defeat either one of these guys, so nothing's gonna come of his attack. So now he can capture 1 die. Again, he's got 2, 3, 4, 5. So We'll say he's going to buy one of these primordial ooze. They got a cost of 5, so that goes there. He spent this quiddity. His creature stays in his ready area, and that's going to end his turn. Alright, so now we go on to the red player's turn. So he has, again, one creature he can score. So he will get 1 point, again 1 glory for the assistant. That moves into his thing, and now he can cull a die, so he's going to do that. Now he could cull an assistant if he wants, but he's going to cull a basic quiddity. Now he'll draw, and again we know this first round, the second round, they're only going to have 6 dice left in their bag, so he draws them out. That's 6. We'll roll them. Alright, he gets to re-roll 1 die. He'll re-roll this one and this one. Okay. So he's going to pay, these are all in his active area. He's going to pay 1 quiddity to summon each of these. That leaves him 2 quiddity in his active area. And now he goes on to attack. So now his attack total is 1 and 1, so it's at 2. So first he attacks the player to his left. That's this player. His defense is 2. If the attack is equal to or greater than the defense, then this creature is destroyed. So he destroys this one. Now he comes on over here. Again, your attack total resets when you move on to the next player. And so his attack total is 2 again. So he's also going to defeat this player's creature. Alright, so he's done with his attacking. Now he moves on to capturing a dice from the wild, but he's only got 2 quiddity. So I don't think, well, he could get this 1 assistant. He could pay 1 to get an assistant, but I think he's not going to do that. So he's just going to move those dice into his used pile, and now he's done. Alright, so now it's the green player's turn. He no longer has the assistant in his ready area, so he doesn't get to score anything. So he's not too happy about that. But now he's going to draw from his bag. Again, we know because this is the second round, he's only got 6 dice in his bag, so we'll just dump them out. Maybe. Alright, I finally got him out. Alright, we roll. And he got all quiddity this time. So no creatures to summon. So no attack. Nothing to ready. So now he's just going to go on and capture a creature from the wild. He's got 6 quiddity he can spend. So we'll say he's going to get one of these mighty death dealers. They cost 6, so he puts that in his used area. And those go into his used area as well now. Alright, back to player 1. We'll do this one more round just to show, and then we'll wrap it up. So he's got no creatures in his ready area. They were defeated by the red player, so he doesn't score anything. So he needs to draw 6 out of his bag, but he's got none in his bag. So now he's got to put all these back in his bag, and he'll be putting 2 new ones that he's acquired in there and hope to draw those. Alright, so I've got them all back in there. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, get a new. 5, 6. Ah, well, he didn't get any of his new ones. Well, we know the next time he draws, he will. Alright, so let's roll these. These are in his ready area. He will summon this 1 assistant, spending a quiddity because it's level 1 to do that. And then he'll have 5 quiddity left. Alright, so he'll attack with this one. He's only got an attack of 1. So he comes over here. It doesn't matter which one of these he defends with. They both have defense of 2. So he's not going to do any damage here. This guy doesn't have anybody to attack. So his attack was of no use. And so now he just goes on and acquires a die. So again, he's got 5. we'll say he's going to get a portal. Cost 4. So he'll spend 2, 3, 4. The other one's not going to do him any good. So he's done, but he does have this one guy in his ready area now. Alright, now we come over to the red player. Well, first thing he's going to do is score. He gets to score for both of these assistants that are still in his ready area. They're worth 1 glory each, as shown here. So he gets to score 2 more points. So he's up to 3. Now those go in there. And now he needs to get 6 out of his bag. He doesn't have any, so he'll have to place all of these used in his used pile into his bag. Oops. Alright. And then he'll draw 6 out, so we'll see what he gets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on. 5, 6. Well, he didn't get any of his new ones either. Alright, so we roll them. Alright. He's going to pay. Well, he's got to immediately re-roll. Alright, so he's got to pay 2 to summon those into his ready area, which he's going to do. And that's going to leave him 3 down here. Alright, so now he'll attack with these. He's got an attack total of 1, 2. So this player doesn't have any. This player just has this guy with a defense of 2, so he's defeated. So this guy's getting lucky. He keeps rolling or getting those 2 assistants. Alright, so now he gets to acquire another dice. He's got 3 quiddity. So what would he... Maybe he'll get a... I guess he'll get a devotee of the Holy Quarry for 3. Again, the cost is 3 as shown there. And so he spends those 3, and that's going to end his turn. Alright, green player has nothing to score. His bag is empty, so he's going to put all his dice back in his bag. Shake them up. Draw out 6. He's sure hoping he gets some of those new ones that he got. So we'll see. 1, 2, 3. He did. 4, 5, 6. Alright. And he's going to roll those. Okay. Alright, so this Mighty Death Dealer is a level 1, so he just spends 1 quiddity to summon it and put it in his ready area. That leaves him 4 other. Alright, so now he attacks. This Mighty Death Dealer has an attack of 3. There's nobody to attack from player 1, so he comes over here to attack player 2. So his attack of 3, this player chooses 1 to defend with. He chooses this one, so that's a defense of 2. So that would subtract 2 from his attack, leaving him with only 1. So he normally wouldn't be able to defeat this one because it has a defense of 2. However, if you look at the Mighty Death Dealer's ability, the first time a creature is destroyed while Death Dealer is attacking an opponent, increase your attack total against that player by Death Dealer's attack. So he gets to increase the total by 3 again. So he was down to 1, but now he gets to increase it by 3. So now it's 4. So he does defeat this second creature of this guy. And it does go on to say that use this ability only once per attack per player. And then this increase is not cumulative. Start each attack against each player with the original attack value. But he was able to defeat both of this player's creatures. So that was good for him. So he now moves on to acquire a die, capture a die from the wilds. He's got 4. So who knows, maybe he decides to also get a portal. and he puts that in there and spends the 4. And that's going to end his turn, and now we would go on to this player. So I think you get a good idea now of how this game works. It's a dice bag building game. You'll acquire more dice, more powerful dice, coal less powerful dice. And so as the game goes on, you'll be grabbing some of these more powerful uh, dice and spells out of the bag, and using those, and your attacks and defenses will be better, and you'll score more points. Because as you grab some of these more powerful ones, you see the ones we've been scoring only score 1 glory, but if you start scoring with some of these other ones that give you 3 glory or 4 glory, when they score, your score starts to go up, a lot faster. So even though the game starts out a little bit slow with all these weak dice and everything being kind of samey the first 2 or 3 turns, after that it starts picking up quite quickly because you start pulling some of these other dice, and if you get some of these portals that let you pull out additional dice out of your bag and roll them as well, you start getting a lot more powerful dice out every turn, and the score goes up pretty quickly. So, like I said, it's a quick game, an easy game, and I find it fun if you're just looking for something that's not going to take too long and is easy to explain the rules to people. So yeah, I don't know why I haven't played this in a few years. I think 2018 or something like that was the last time I played it. So yeah, it was fun to pull it out and play it again. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.